let's talk this Hawks Pistons team. This Cade Cunningham injury, he goes out, and sometimes you just see these teams that discover gold when a player goes out. You saw it with the Denver Nuggets with Peyton Watson coming in, and they discovered a real player. And then this, is it Janice? Is that Jake? I can't remember the guy's name. He goes off for 30 against the Lakers. So you have this Hawks team that's, flirting around with the playoffs. You got this Pistons team that's trying to hold on to one of the top spots. What do we do with this game tonight? How do you break it down?
Yeah, just so everyone's clear, both games we're talking about here today on the show are on ESPN, and both games, Andy, nice setup there. We'll be talking about teams whose star players injured, and they're doing okay still. But before we talk about Detroit without Cunningham, I want to talk about Atlanta. They've won 13 of 14. But let's look through the list of teams they've beaten, Andy and Dan. It is a real rogues gallery, if you will. These are the teams the Hawks have beaten, okay? Brooklyn, Washington twice, Portland, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Dallas, Brooklyn again, Milwaukee again, Orlando, that's a decent win, Golden State, and then Memphis. None of those teams, guys, would currently reside in the top 15 of my power rating. So all teams in the lower half of the league. Also, 11 of the 13 wins for the Hawks came at home, wouldn't you know? One time the Hawks did lose over those last 14 games. It was to a top 15 opponent, and it was on the road, 117-95 at Houston. And I'm bringing all this up because tonight they are in the Motor City. The Hawks facing a Pistons team that leads the East, of course, with a 52-19 straight-up record, already clinched a playoff spot. And the Pistons are currently without their best player, Cade Cunningham, as you mentioned at the top, Andy. But since it was announced Cunningham would be out with the collapsed lung, Pistons have gone 3-0. If you caught the morning wager on Monday, 2 days ago, Zeno and I told you to back the Pistons as home dogs against the Lakers. Sure enough, comment section didn't like that one, but the Pistons were a winner in that game. And Pistons are favored tonight, okay? But I think all things considered, the number is too short. Just not a believer in the Hawks. Big edge defensively to Detroit in this matchup. And with Cunningham out, if you're looking for someone to step up, Andy, you mentioned this is the NBA. Someone always steps up. It's not like when you lose the leading scorer, a team's going to score 60 points. Okay, it's just not going to happen. It's the NBA. Somebody always steps in to fill that vacuum. I think Thompson is a guy for the Pistons who might have a good game. He always plays better at home. But regardless of who steps up, Pistons minus 2.5 is how I play this one, guys. I just think this number is too short. The Atlanta Hawks, to me, are just a team that right now I want to, as I often preach, sell high on.
I mean, that who's who of who the Hawks beat is just scheduling. You're never.
Yeah, it's not a surprise when you look at it. You're like, oh my God, the Hawks are this hot. Well, how did this happen? And then you look who they played. You're like, oh well, they've played everyone who's not trying. I mean, could they have not ordered Utah or Sacramento on that trip? I mean, or on that homestand, I should say.
What are the Pacers doing these days? Why
exactly.
are the Wizards on the schedule?
Yeah. I mean, so it was, they took it. I mean, look, you can only beat the teams in front of you. Give them credit. Obviously they might avoid the play-in tournament, the Hawks. So you have to finish in the top 6 to do that. They are in the top 6 right now. But, yeah, I don't know. To me, the Pistons and the market, we talk about how players always seem to step up in the wake of these injuries, Andy. I just think there's always in the NBA, there's just an overreaction in the market to these injuries. This is just too short of a number to me. The Detroit Pistons, they're trying. I realize they pretty much got the top spot sewn up, but minus 2.5 at home, I'll take the better team.
Blocked is in the chat. He's a huge Hawks fan. And yeah, he's saying they didn't make the schedule. I will say this about the Hawks. I have no proof of this, but I just think if they still had Trae Young, I think they lose 3 or 4 of those games where they had no business losing them. I like this Hawks team, actually. I really like the makeup of them. I think they're maybe not this year, but maybe moving forward next year, they get all the pieces right. I like there. So speaking of a team without their star player and somebody that steps in, can I introduce the public to Bones Highland?
Yes.
He's been a player prop gem since Anthony Edwards went out, and Bones Highland was kind of one of these guys that was like, you don't really want to depend on him. Mm-hmm. He's not bad. He's pretty good, given a lot of energy off the bench here. And maybe the Timberwolves have stumbled onto something here as they move into the playoffs here. They're playing a Rockets team. I could not be more out on a playoff team than this Rockets team.
Yeah.
Their defense is kind of gone. They just kind of seem like a mess. So what do we make of this Rockets Timberwolves game tonight?
Yeah, Andy, I'll echo your sentiments. As a matter of fact, Houston's the team I faded on Monday. If you're a client of mine, you got a 3% play on the Bulls plus 8.5. Turns out we didn't even need the points. Bulls won that game outright, led by as many as 22 at one point. Did get a little hairy at the end, but again, it was an outright winner. It was a horrible, sounds like maybe you were aware of this, Andy. That was a horrible scheduling spot for the Rockets, playing their third game in 4 days on the road against the Bulls team that had been off for 3 days. You don't see that very often in this league. But like you, Andy, I have to say, big picture, the Rockets are a team I'm not buying in terms of the playoffs. I think it all depends on the matchup, right? We can say, oh, they're not looking so good. I don't think they'll win a first-round matchup. But let's see who they play. But I think another first-round exit could very well be in the cards for Houston. But here is the thing for tonight. I do expect them to shoot better than 27% from three. They were only 11 of 41. That's 27% from beyond the arc against Chicago. And they still scored 124 points, mind you, despite lousy three-point shooting. Now, I know the Bulls are really bad defensively, but still, any improvement from behind the three-point arc for Houston, and we should see them still put up a decent number tonight here in Minnesota, who is coming off a pretty shocking outright win. They were 10-point underdogs at Boston. I had a free play on the T-Wolves in that one if you visited wt.buzz/pp. I just thought it was way too many points, even though the T-Wolves are, as you've already stated, Andy, without Anthony Edwards. But similar to the Pistons, we talked about earlier, without Cunningham, Minnesota's 3-1 without Edwards since he went down with the knee injury. They only scored 104 and 102 in the last two games. But you look at Minnesota, the makeup, the roster without Edwards, it's more of a perimeter-oriented team. I think that's going to mean more three-point attempts. I'll play the three-point variance game here. I know that can be dangerous and just say, hey, I think the shots will be falling tonight. But not only will Houston be better from three than they were in their last game, I think Minnesota will be as well. We've seen the overtake money all morning. Total for this game is now as high as 224 at some places. Just double check here. Sometimes things can change after I do my notes. Yeah, 224 is the high point, 223.5. Some other shops to shop around, guys. I still like the over at the current number. I think this total is an overreaction to the Edwards absence.
Nice. Tell everyone what you have up at WagerTalk. Tell everyone about Morning Wager. It's an awesome, awesome show. Get your day started off right. Tell us about it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we have a great special offer going on. This is available exclusively at Picks and Parlays, not on my page at WagerTalk, but if you go to my page at Picks and Parlays or Zeno's page at Picks and Parlays, you can get this. You can get the rest of the college basketball season from both of us for just $99. I think that's a really good deal. It was a winning first week for me in the NCAA tournament. Felt like I was through a 12-round prize fight emotionally, Andy and Dan, that weekend. The ups and downs of that thing, man. Like, you win a couple in a row, then you lose a couple in a row, but it was a winning first week. That's all it's about. I'm excited about the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. Also, for today, I have two NBA plays, not either game I talked about here on the show. On a 40-20 NBA run, that's 67% if I do the math. So pick that up, 2-for-1 deal. You can get right now. But if you want the rest of the NCAA tournament from both Mark and I, Mark was awesome the first week. He went 10-2. You can get that at Picks and Parlays right now exclusively. $99, both of us. Rest away.